In order to control what you look like, you must therefore control what you eat. And so then at the end of the day, what you eat is controlling you. For those who are deep enough to get it,
but profound enough to not care.
You're listening to Consciously Unconscious. Uh-oh. The hiccups.
Oh, no. Did you ever hear about that woman who had the hiccups for like 2 weeks?
Is she okay?
I heard about it on the Today Show when I was like 13, and then ever since I've been terrified every time I get the hiccups.
Has anyone checked in on her?
I don't know. Rumor has it she's still hiccuping to this day.
Wow. I actually like getting the hiccups, except when they turn painful.
Why do you like getting them? You think they're like cute?
Kind of like a sneeze. Like, I love to sneeze.
Just like scratches an itch?
Yeah.
I love a good sneeze too.
But you have to be able to really release it.
But I do like 3 to 4.
Oh, you're one of those.
What are you?
I'm a one and done girl.
Really?
I used to be a one and done girl. Recently, I've been hitting about 2 or 3. My dad will do like 15 at a time. And I'm like, by the 7th one, I'm like, I need to evacuate the premises.
Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome back.
Welcome. We are recording a special episode today.
Super special because it's also on a super full moon.
Can you tell me a little bit about it though, actually, because I have no idea what's going on with this.
I know.
Yeah.
I will not claim to be an astrology expert ever. Astrology is something that actually I feel like I've had a lot of resistance to like absorbing. I have so many friends who are deeply invested in the practice and learning about it. And every time I hear something, I'm like, yep, got it. Nailed it. In one ear, out the other.
Yeah.
I can barely remember my own chart. But what I do know about this, it's a full moon in Taurus. A full moon is essentially when the earth and the moon completely oppose each other. Cut that. I don't know. It's a full moon in Taurus. Taurus is a fixed earth sign. So Taurus is very known for being really like sensual in terms of like touch, taste, feel, aesthetic, very in the material world, very grounded though at the same time. And a full moon in Taurus, this is the first full moon in Taurus we've had in 6 months. So 6 months ago, we had a previous full moon in May. It was like May 6th, May 7th. We had our last full moon in Taurus.
I wonder what I was doing in May. I can't even remember.
Really? I was just getting back to the US.
Oh, that's when you got back? What was May? I don't even remember May. I'm telling you, I have short-term memory loss.
Yeah. My short-term memory loss comes from the metric ton of weed I've smoked in my life. But all I know about the full moon is that, of course, full moons like always bring an opportunity for release. A new moon is where you manifest. A full moon is where you release, which is actually a lot of alignment with what we're talking about today in terms of releasing, letting go, breaking patterns and thoughts. But it's really asking you to just evaluate what are the places that you are feeding in your life? What are the places that you are nourishing in your life? Are you nourishing positivity and joy and peace and harmony? Or are you nourishing places that are really holding you back? Are you nourishing flawed relationships? Are you nourishing things that are not serving your highest potential? And so it's essentially asking you to break out of routines, patterns, habits that are not allowing you to reach your full potential.
That's really fitting. And I feel like every time I'm similar. I don't necessarily follow like the moon cycle and I don't know all the astrology, but I do feel like every time I hear about what's going on with the moon, I deeply relate to it.
Yeah.
That's probably why I'm like today after we do the podcast, I am painting the boys' room.
Cute.
Literally did like a whole mood board design of what I want their room to look like. I got paint swatches for my room. Like I'm really in my like aesthetic of my house right now. Like it needs.
You're so Taurus coded right now.
That's what I'm feeling. And every full moon I like cry.
Yeah.
Like yesterday I broke down and I don't know why. And it's just and that's the thing too. I feel like I used to be this person that needed to know everything that I was feeling. I needed to know why. Like I needed to intellectualize everything that I was feeling. And I feel like as I've gotten older, I've just realized like it's okay to just fucking cry.
Totally. It's okay to not have to have an explanation behind why we do things or why we feel things.
I also feel like your body holds on to so much, and Have you read the book Our Body Keeps the Score?
No, it's been on my shelf for months.
So I started reading it and I couldn't get through it either. Like it's a heavy book and it's one of those books that you really have to be.
What's it about? Just trauma?
It's about how your body holds on to trauma and trauma that you're not even necessarily cognizant of. It's like your body is keeping the score. Your body
100%
is
from this life and many lives before.
Yeah, feeling like the physical manifestations of the trauma that happened maybe on an emotional level. But I tried to read it and it's just one of those books that like you have to have like an espresso shot and like a fucking highlighter and like really ingest. And I'm not there yet, but I feel within that concept of what I need is like my body needs the release, not my mind. I don't need to work with the mind. I'm constantly working with the mind. I'm constantly working with my emotions, but I'm working with my emotions on an intellectual, like, let me figure out my emotions way versus like, let me just release my emotions. Let me get it out of my body.
Totally.
And so I just feel like every full moon I'm learning, like, let my body just do its thing.
Totally. And full moon or not, like allowing yourself to get into a movement flow state is so healthy. We have been talking a lot about active meditation and just clearing the mind and settling the mind and allowing thoughts to come and go without having to analyze them. Movement. I'm biased towards yoga, but like however you choose to move your body is such a beautiful way to let trauma and energy and emotion flow through you just the same way that your thoughts and your mind become like clouds passing in the sky.
Speaking of trauma on a body level, this episode is going to be about, the title is Indulgence Without Guilt, but it's really going to be kind of an exploration of our personal experiences with food during the holiday season, navigating that, our relationship to it, disordered patterns, and also kind of on a cultural, societal level. And this is one that I feel like, unfortunately, every woman, man can relate to. And it feels really fitting because I think no matter how healed you are, this time of year always brings up those old wounds, those old traumas, and you might find your body reacting in a certain way at the dinner table during Thanksgiving, and you're like, what the fuck is this? I thought I've worked through this. So I thought, we both thought it would be a really good topic to talk about.
Yeah, it's timely for sure. And I think that just before we really get into the meat of this episode, as a sensitive trigger warning, like there will be talk of disordered eating, and there will be talk of kind of binging and purging and relationships to food that could be triggering to some. While we hope that this is healing, and while we hope that this is shedding light on a topic and talking about it without the stigma, without the taboos, without the negative emotional burden that it comes with, it's just an open conversation. But if this is something that you don't feel ready to digest, you don't feel ready to hold space for, that's okay too. We'll meet you in the next step.
Just go listen to one of our unhinged episodes or something.
Yeah, go find, like we have something else for you somewhere else. But
before we dive in, beverage of the week-o.
I'm always forgetting
Beveragina.
I need to turn my phone on at DND because people be
blowing your shit up.
People be blowing my shit up and I am in the middle of dropping in. Bevy of the weeky.
Bevy. It's your turn to sing. Or we can both sing.
Do we have to sing?
We can do whatever. We can hum.
Beverage of the week.
Is that your demons from the past?
Yeah, dude. They're here to play today. Introducing.
I actually just kind of liked that.
Okay, fine. That's perfect. Will you share with us what you picked up?
Yeah. So this is a turmeric latte. If you're in Denver, it's from the Green Collective. We be loving that place.
Dude, I be loving the Green Collective. I take out a mortgage there. Like straight up spend half my paycheck there every month.
This was probably like $25
easily
with the 2 coffees and then
easily. But my soul has been sold.
Yeah,
they have it.
Yeah,
in the back room.
Yeah,
with all the organic ingredients. Yeah. It's a golden milk latte. If you've never had one, it's like a turmeric latte. What kind of milk we got? Did you get whole milk?
I didn't even say anything.
You little fucker.
I said, give me a turmeric latte, and then I want a iced oat milk latte and an iced almond milk latte because I know you like almond milk.
This is reggie milk.
Is it reggie milk?
It's reggie milk.
I kind of love that.
It's reggie milk. This is so fitting.
It is so fitting. Wait, I'm just going to say that I did that on purpose.
No, then it wouldn't be fitting. This is the point. As we discuss kind of releasing control and intuitive eating and releasing restrictive boundaries and diets and like reactions as things being good or bad, we'll get into all of this. This was a perfect synchronicity of getting the wrong milk and maybe having that be something that someone was like, I can't drink it. No. Because just so everyone knows, probably fucking a lot of you are not actually lactose intolerant.
Yeah, no, for real.
You just think that whole milk is not going to make you feel like shit.
A lot of this too, I feel like a lot of disordered eating patterns comes from a plethora of sources, whether it's your mom, whether it's your dad, whether it's your sister, whether it's your aunt, whether it's society, or it's literally social media telling you that milk is bad. And I really did have a huge experience with like figuring out intolerances.
Yeah.
And I will say, unfortunately, I am somebody that should not drink milk because I get chronic sinus infections when I drink milk.
Sinus infections.
Mm-hmm. So I got chronic sinus infections from last August all the way to like June of this year.
Interessante.
And you know,
why?
The only thing I could pinpoint
is milk.
I switched to drinking raw milk.
Yeah, which is illegal. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, it's so illegal. I don't know why. Actually, it's in certain states it's not. In Colorado, you can't sell it in stores, but there are these like obviously
Co-ops,
crunchy farms,
co-ops.
yeah, that sell it to you. And so I signed up because I'm like, my kids drink full dairy. My Lucas does. Like, let's just get them the raw milk. I couldn't drink it. But when I was pregnant, I could drink milk, which is just so interesting how your body changes. But anyway, I digress. I'm at a place now in my life where this isn't going to fucking kill me.
Exactly.
So cheers.
Cheers. It's really yummy. We chose
It is so yummy.
a turmeric golden milk latte because it is like really warming, really calming to the system. Turmeric is a superfood. Yeah, we just kind of chose it as something that feels a bit more nourishing to the body and to the mind and to the soul and to the spirit and to like food patterns and thought patterns.
It also reminds me of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
It definitely has those like nutmeg, cinnamon, turmeric like flavors. Kind of tastes pumpkin-y
and
in
it's
a way.
Warm. Yeah. So it's in alignment with trying to figure out how to be a little bit softer and more nourishing to ourselves without all these restrictive patterns, which is crazy because I feel like this is something that is a real lifelong practice. Mm-hmm. We all have places where this has stemmed from, whether it's in a household growing up, whether it's, friendships, whether it's society, culture, social media, etc. I feel like a lot of mine just came from the general pressures of being a woman.
Well, I was thinking about this too when we were going to, Jessa writes all the outlines for our episodes. We like kind of brainstorm the episodes, but Jessa is the one that like really does the outlining. And then I add my little things in here and there from my experience. But when I was doing that and looking at this topic from a different perspective in my own experience, I was realizing I don't think we've really ever talked about this, you and I. Like,
yeah.
I don't know your history with food. I don't know your history with disordered eating patterns, but I know that you've had them.
Yeah.
And it's so fucked up because I could probably point to anyone listening and be like, I know you've had a disordered eating experience because you are a woman.
Yeah. We don't want to exclude men because I
that
think
is
it's
very real
just
too.
It's a social cultural expectation of your eating directly correlated to what you look like. And what you look like being one of the most important aspects of who you are.
Yeah.
And so in order to control what you look like, you must therefore control what you eat. Mm-hmm. And so then at the end of the day, what you eat is controlling you. Mm-hmm. And that's really what I've felt like my whole life. I mean, I grew up in a family where, and most people do, right? Like food is this beautiful, beautiful social, cultural, historical tradition. It's a way to carry roots through your ethnicity, through your heritage. Grandma's got your recipe, great grandma's passed it down. Like you cook the same meals every holiday together. You've got your favorite dishes. In most families, food is such a way to honor time together and to honor lineage and to honor connection. Food is a love language. Like it really is. Mm-hmm. And making someone food, sharing food, going out to eat is really a way to say like, I care about you. I love you. Let me make you a warm plate of food. Let me teach you how to cook. Let me cook for you. Let me take you out. And it's also an art, and you've probably got a lot to say about it too, because like Lucas is in culinary school, or he just finished, which is really cool. So like we can get into that. But for me, food has always been a space where it has been so celebratory that in turn overindulgence really stems from that. Because you set yourself up in these like celebratory spaces of it's a holiday, it's a family dinner, people are over to visit, we're having, you know, a backyard pig roast. And because you're in the spirit of this is an amazing opportunity to connect and socialize and love, you lose a sense of intuition with what you're consuming. 100%. Because you're so wrapped up in the moment.
How did your disordered eating patterns manifest themselves?
Well, I never really thought about it all the way up until college. Like, I never really had thoughts about food until college. I guess maybe the only thoughts that I had about food was I fucking love to eat and I'm such a foodie. Like very well traveled at a young age. Like, you know, I'm at the dinner table ordering surf and turf when I'm age 9. Yeah. Like I am just like, my family raised me ordering Indian food, eating Asian food, eating Thai, like just like very cultured palate.
Food was an art.
Food was an art, and you know, my parents ate well, my mom cooked well, like it was just a thing. And so I was just always like, I love food. And then I got to college, and that was like really, I was introduced to a lot of other people who were really struggling with their relationship to food. And I was like, wait, should I be struggling with my relationship to food? I've never really thought about, do I eat too much? Do I eat too little? How is this affecting my body? I mean, then you start to drink a lot more too. So you're like, all these gals are talking about being conscious of how many calories are in the drinks that they're buying and ordering, and oh, I don't want to drink beer and this and this. And I just had this moment of like, I've never thought about this before, but like, I guess I should. And in college, what you are especially rewarded for is the way that you look.
100%.
You must be pretty skinny, beautiful, little, amazing, drinking, partying girl to be in, you
like
know,
putting down a handle, but not letting it show.
Yes. And quite blatantly honest, like I just started taking a bunch of Adderall in college because I started to notice, oh, this will make me stop eating. And it's interesting because the restrictive tendencies I had also created binging tendencies. So it felt like everything just showed up at once, where I was, oh my gosh, this little pilly I can pop will make me talk people's ears off, and I'll be skinny, and I will, like, I just had like a limitless supply. And so I just was like, wow, this is perfect. This is a miracle. But the second that wore off, I would obviously be malnourished, like so nutrient and mineral deprived that my body was like, go find food right now. And just the taste, I mean, the comfort of food, like the emotional support of food.
Yeah.
We're going to get into that.
Yeah.
It just led to these massive binge eating episodes. So it was binge restrict, binge restrict, binge restrict.
But that's interesting that you didn't have like a massive experience that kind of triggered the disordered pattern. It was really more of just like a cultural, societal thing that surrounded you that eventually made its way to you.
When I look back on it, and this is a later thing that I found, this is a later in the episode conversation too, when I did my 11-day fast, where I literally did not eat a morsel of fucking food for 11 days and had a lot of reflections on it. I was having all of these retrospective thoughts about, you know, where did this disordered eating actually come from? A lot of it did come from college, but I did realize, like, in my household, there was definitely also patterns that I never put 2 and 2 together until recently. And I, you know, that's not my story to tell.
Yeah.
But definitely my mom had similar experiences, as again, most women do, that I did not realize that I was subconsciously consuming and watching that was potentially affecting my actions until just a year ago.
Yeah.
That I figured that the fuck all out and was like, oh, that's been stored in my body. Body keeps score. So that's kind of like my introduction to it. Do you feel like you have a similar experience, or did it feel like it showed up differently for you? Give me the rundown.
So mine is actually a pretty different experience as yours, because I grew up in a very American household. And I was also really well traveled too, because my dad played golf for a living and it took us all over the world. But my parents are not the traveling type in the way that they like want to see the world. They're traveling for work. Like, it's so interesting because Lucas always will be like, you went so many places, like you've gone on so many trips. And I'm like, they weren't trips, like they weren't vacations. They were literally work.
Yeah.
So it was a very different perspective. And I mean, perfect example is like a couple years ago, we went to Japan and my parents were like, oh my gosh, there's an Outback. Let's go to the fucking Outback. And I'm like,
you did not
go
to the Outback Steakhouse in Japan.
I didn't. And they didn't either. But like one of the nights they tried to get like Italian food. I'm like, I am literally only eating Japanese food until I leave. Like until I leave. Like, what are we talking about? But I credit a lot of my like food as art perspective to Lucas, because that was his upbringing too, and his dad was a chef. His dad and mom owned a restaurant. His grandma was like this amazing chef, still is. Like, food was always a cultural thing to them, and in many ways food was really the way that they kind of expressed their love. I grew up in an American household, and it was very like fucking meatloaf and fucking I don't even know.
American dream, baby.
My parents, like, I grew up on applesauce, Eggo waffles, and grilled cheeses. Like,
which is so fucking funny, because sometimes I think about like you know, every country has really specific traditional dishes.
yeah.
And I was thinking before this episode, like, what is a traditional American dish? Tell us, Amanda.
Burgers,
fries,
pasta
mac
salad,
and cheese, pasta salad,
tuna salad. I never
Egg
liked
salad.
it growing up, but actually my kids fuck up a tuna salad. And we make a mean tuna salad. Anyway, I digress. But I just grew up in a household where food was a means to an end. My mom was an almond mom. Like, and this is not to put her on blast at all. She grew up with a mom who was also an almond mom. You know what I mean? Like, it was very ingrained in...
Tell people what an almond mom is.
Like, we'll joke like, oh, I'm not hungry. I'm just going to eat the olive in my martini.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually full. I had 2 nuts.
Yeah.
I had 2 almonds.
Like, oh my God, you're hungry already? Like, it's only 2 p.m. Mom, I haven't eaten since 8 a.m. Like,
yeah.
Just very much not an eater. And it's interesting because my dad is also not an eater. If anything, my mom is very into health and wellness. And so I think that was also something that influenced me and made me want to become a health coach. But she was very like diet-y in the way where she never really restricted her food, but it was just like eating like a bird. It just wasn't like...
Just picky.
Yeah, just picky. Just like not really caring about food, but also caring about food. Do you know what I mean? And my dad, on the other hand, just like was not a big eater. Like, could take it or leave it. Like, would eat when he was hungry, stop when he was full, and just like...
So intuitive of him.
So intuitive, and also just not into food. Like, wasn't really a big foodie.
Yeah.
I was an athlete my whole life. And so I think I got into this, like, I want to eat in a way that's going to support my body. And was always trying to do, like, not like restrict. I never struggled with restriction in high school. It was more just like, I want to eat healthy, quote unquote. I'm going to have like granola as a snack. I'm going to have like, you know, oatmeal for breakfast. I just wanted to eat healthy. And I remember my mom would get like lean cuisines all the time, and I would just eat that. Like, just very into diet culture without it being blatant, I'm on a diet.
Yeah. And I think even just you saying like the lean cuisines, all this subliminal messaging of consume less calories, consume smaller portions, be healthy. You will feel better. You will look better if you restrict. Like, even that masks itself as not being diet culture, but it is. It is.
And I'll never forget, I started dating Lucas at 16, and one of our first dates that he ever took me on, it was actually my first like real date where a boy picked me up at my house. I put on a beautiful outfit and we went to a nice dinner.
Beautiful gown.
Like it was the first like really formal dinner date that I've ever had. Cute. And he took me to this place called Luma on Park Ave in Orlando, and it's not there anymore.
There's a Park Ave everywhere.
There's a Park Ave everywhere, but it's in Orlando and it's not there anymore. But they used to have like this truffle popcorn that they would put on your table like right when you go in. It was unreal.
Truffle on anything,
I know.
Game over.
And so it was really the first, and like he knew the chef because like his dad knew the chef, and the chef brought us stuff out. It was the first real experience that I had where I was like, oh, this is like an experience.
Yeah.
This is something that is different from what I'm used to. And so from that moment on, like Lucas introduced me to so many things. He introduced me to sushi. He introduced me to like different types of meat, like lamb and like all of these things.
It's so funny the more you talk about your and Lucas's relationship. Like Lucas and I are literally cut from the same cloth. That has been me to all of my partners, as being like, let me show you the way.
Yeah.
But how cool that you got that introduction and experience.
Totally. And I just remember going to his family dinners and they were just like vastly different from my family dinners. And my grandma's over here making like mashed potatoes with fucking like Daisy sour cream in it. And Lucas's grandma's like slaving away from 8 a.m. on this red spaghetti, like just very different. I got to college and that was really the first time that I had experienced any type of like gut issues. I obviously started drinking a lot more. I wasn't moving my body as much because I went from being an athlete and being in high school to going to art school, and just my complete like day-to-day routine shifted. So my body started to change and I was like, this is interesting. Like just natural. You're becoming more of a woman. And I remember I was sitting in my dorm, and this was the first experience that I remember being like, this is a disordered behavior, where I was sitting in my dorm and I was doing my homework and my stomach was so distended, so bloated. I felt so gassy, just like something was wrong with my gut. And I was on antibiotics a lot as a kid, so I feel like that was a big part of it, but something was wrong with my gut. And I remember calling my mom and being like, I don't know what's going on with me, but like something's wrong. And I remember I was hungry still. You know that frustrating feeling where like my stomach hurts, but I'm fucking hungry?
Yeah.
So I remember grabbing like a Nature Valley bar. Do you remember those Nature Valley bars? The one that had like the two?
Of course I do.
From my roommate, because she had like a full box. She was a soccer player in college, so she had a full box of them and would just like always eat them. So I remember grabbing one and I ate it. And I felt so upset that my stomach was so bloated and distended that I got another one. And I got another one. And I got another one. And that was the first time that I was like, oh, something's not right here. And I'm choosing food to fix it. Even though it's the thing that's making it worse. And so from there, it really just manifested itself in a lot of binge eating. Like I never purged, but it was very much like I felt upset about something, I ate. I felt antisocial, I ate. I mean, I remember like not wanting to go to the cafeteria, and I would just always get a to-go box of food and bring it back to my dorm so that I could like control the amount that I ate and like eat in peace, in silence, so that I could like really
not cafeteria, the dining halls.
Dining halls
were really there.
But I remember I was so obsessed with food that I didn't want to like be distracted by other people while I was eating the food.
But you know what? I think that we, and I experienced very similar things in terms of the emotional comfort that it provided when I was in moments of despair or void. But it's not necessarily the food that I was attached to. It was the initial feeling during the like beginning part of eating the food where it's, this is comforting, and oh my gosh, I can eat this in private and this is going to make me feel better. And then it's the quick flip switch of halfway through feeling like I shouldn't finish this. I'm full. I don't want to finish this. And not being able to stop. And then it's the extreme sense of guilt and shame after you finish. And then that guilt and shame leading to more similar behaviors because you've already let yourself go. You've already ruined the day. It doesn't matter anymore. What's one more bite? What's this? What's that? Like you are not acting from a place of alignment and power by finishing and being like, okay, well, I am I'm full. I shouldn't have done that. Or not even I shouldn't have done that, but just like when you leave like that, that's the cycle of binge eating, is that guilt and shame that you leave with, that severe anger and like disgust with yourself is exactly the feelings that leads you to do it again.
100%. I'm like, my body's like shaking when we're talking about this because I feel like I blocked so much of that out.
Yeah.
So much of those experiences. Like I have a vivid memory of me calling my best friend, Abby, who was in a different college at the time, being like, can you just walk me through like what you eat in a day? Cause I feel so helpless. I do not know how to eat normally. I do not know how to wake up and not fucking think about food.
It's so controlling. I mean, to this day, still for me, food really controls my life in terms of how often I find my mind going there. And, you know, we can discuss how we feel like there are ways that we've healed from it, but I am still actively healing. And I feel like my whole life will be dedicated to that practice, like I said, of just like creating a dynamic and positive and productive relationship with food versus being controlled by it. But if you really take a second to, and this is like a call to action, this is you who's listening, this is you, to think about the amount of time per day. If you could just like maybe guesstimate how many minutes, how many hours a day are you thinking about food?
Yeah.
It's a lot of time.
Yeah.
It's a lot of time. And we structure our lives around food and eating. We structure our schedules around it. We structure our finances around it. We structure our social events around it. I mean, it's really, even if you have a healthy relationship to food, it is still really consistently a predominant part of our livelihood and our lives and existing. We are never, I mean, I think back to my education. Did I take a nutrition class? I don't even know, like a health class. I was never given any information about how to properly nourish my body. Luckily, I grew up in a household where like I wasn't eating McDonald's. There were no chips in the house. Like I didn't have an almond mom by any means, but I had a mom who was like also really conscious of what she was putting in her body, but then also really struggling to not like, again, not my story to tell, but seemed to be that she also really struggled to live in the lens of restriction, which we all do, right? But
well, I'm really curious too, because there is a moment when you're, and I think it happens at a different age for everyone, but there is a time in which you're innocent to it, where you don't think about food. It's just it's put in front of your face. You eat when you're hungry, you stop when you're full. I'm so fascinated by the moments in which that changes for people and why. And so even in that call to action, like if you are listening and you're thinking about how many times that you do think about food, like I would try to maybe pinpoint like, okay, how many times am I thinking about food? But also, what is the narrative that I'm telling myself when I'm thinking about those foods? Also, when did this start? What are the patterns in which this narrative comes up? I almost feel like I'm a completely different person from then to now. Because when we're talking about like how often do you think about food, truly I'm at a place where I do not think about it. Yeah. And I think it's because I'm so fucking busy with my children. I do not sit down.
Need to put your energy and thoughts other places.
Absolutely. But when I was 18 years old, it's all I fucking thought about.
Well, and you make a really good point that it's not just about discerning how much time you spend thinking about it. It's about the energetics behind how you're thinking about it. And I think that I still think about it a lot, but the energetics around it has changed to be more soft, more gentle, more gracious around food versus really fucking mad at myself and trying to control every single scenario and think about how, like, instead of thinking about how the food is going to affect my physical form to present to the world aesthetically, I'm now thinking about how food is going to affect internally my gut microbiome, my, oxygen levels, my nutrient levels, my mineral content. Like I'm starting to think about how it will nourish me from the inside out. it's so deeply emotionally driven that some people, when they go through something hard, when they go through a breakup, when they go through something that's stressful, they're like, I can't eat. I feel sick. I feel nauseous. Couldn't be me.
Oh, see, that's me.
Oh my gosh.
When I go through something stressful, like I can't. But you, when you're like, I need the food.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I also just, I am someone who acts really in life just kind of like out of impulse. And to me, I like to change. In a lot of situations, it works for me to interchange impulse and intuition, because if I start to think too hard about something and I start to, like we said in the beginning of this episode, overanalyze this perspective and this outcome and this and why I'm doing this, then I'm like, this is analysis paralysis. If I act on quote unquote impulse, a lot of times that impulse is intuition. When it comes to food, acting on impulse to me is not a state of intuition. Acting on impulse is the complete opposite. I have closed off any of my lower chakras telling me anything about what I need. And I am acting just on complete and total, like, what's like, it's not muscle memory, but just
autopilot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or fear or emotion or whatever I was talking about before. So when I did this fast in Thailand, I just still can't believe, like, I just very much dissociate that I didn't eat for almost 11 days. Like, I'm not joking, you guys, when I say I didn't eat anything. Water is the only thing I had. And when I signed up for this, I signed up for it with a good friend, Joey, who is super dedicated to her practices. She's really been a big expander for me. Shout out, Joey. I fucking love you. She was doing her yoga teacher training program at this place in Thailand called Orion. It's on this island, Koh Phangan, which, if you know anything about it, place is a wormhole in terms of just like oversaturated spiritual practices. It's known as the island of Tantra. Excuse me. The island of Tantra, which has a negative connotation as well. But there's just like a lot of charged practices that happen there. I mean, every single day you can go get your Akashic Records reading. You can go to the sound bath healing ceremony. You can go to this. You can go to that. It's intense. It's intense. And so if I was going to do it, I guess this was the only fucking place that I was going to do it. But we signed up for an 11-day detox. It's 11 days of detoxing and colonics, which is essentially like an enema, a colema, whatever the fuck you want to call it. You put something up your asshole and your large intestine gets flushed out from like all the toxins.
Which is so interesting, the way that things and practices shift for you in terms of the energetics, because when I was in the thick of my disordered eating, colonics were a part of that disordered behavior. Now colonics are truly like a loving, compassionate practice. But continue.
Yeah Well, I have so many mixed feelings about this, so I hope I don't take 27 minutes to try to sum this up. But when I first signed up for this, and Joy was like, yeah, do it for me. Do it with me. Sign up. I was just initially first thought, I'm going to be skinny. I'm going to be so skinny. I'm going to be so skinny. I'm going to be in a bathing suit. I'm like on my journey in Asia. I'm going to look so good. I'm going to be so tan. I'm going to be so skinny. That is literally what I thought signing up for it. And this was in conjunction with my Reiki training program. So additionally, I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to be a really clear channel. I'm going to be really open, but I have to be super fucking blatant that was the first thing that I thought of was skinny. And I knew that was wrong. I knew that patterned thought, that patterned behavior of this is what it's going to provide me with was aesthetic, skinniness, thinness, approachability from other people.
Smallness.
Teeny, imperceptible, paper thin. No, but really, and then we got
Flat Stanley,
dude, Flat Stanley. And the closer and closer we got to it, the more extreme anxiety I had building up around it, because I also, when I travel, value so much.
Yeah.
Eating the culture.
Yeah.
And
eating the culture.
But like seriously, some of the best food in the world, if you know anything about me, Asian food is the key to my heart. It's the key to my heart. I could eat it every day for the rest of my life. And so when you go, you want to you want to get the most out of your experience. And that means going to every single restaurant possible.
Yeah, yeah.
And having all these tiny little Thai ladies cook you their meals. And so I was having a lot of anxiety, whatever. We show up for the fast and you just have no idea what's coming for you. You just have no fucking idea. And in your mind, you're kind of just like, all right, like 7, 11 days, like that's not that much. Because it's technically 7 days of no eating. On the first couple days and the last couple days, you can have like a juice. So no solid food, essentially. Again, to sum this up in a way that's not an entire episode by itself, basically day 1 through 4, I released my fucking demons. I mean, like off the leash, they were out to play. I was so uncomfortable with the fact that I really understood how dependent emotionally I was on food. And so the first couple of days, like physiologically, you're getting symptoms, right? You're getting hunger pangs, you're getting that grumbling, you're getting that fatigue, you're getting nausea even, you're getting like cravings. Lightheadedness, like you can't sleep, like you are really in the thick of your physiological experience of my body wants food right now. But then on top of that, you are starting to realize how many moments you're not actually physically hungry, but mentally, emotionally, you've made space for food. And that was terrifying for me. And thank God I did it with Joey, because doing it alone would have been just like insane. But
it's really interesting, like taking the thing out of the picture and examining the thing. Like taking food out of the equation, but then almost reflecting on that relationship with food. And it's interesting too, because I think for some people who may be listening, that might be very triggering.
Yeah. I mean, it's a really, and what I'll explain too is I'm not necessarily sure that this was a proper way for me personally to go about healing and working through my disordered eating. It was an experience for sure that I stand by and that changed my life for better or for worse. That brought awareness to me. But it's also, you have to be very careful of the pendulum swing, which I had already experienced for years of binge, restrict, binge, restrict, binge, restrict. And this was just a much longer restriction. And I feared the whole time too. Like I already had these thoughts of, when I'm done with this 7 to 11 days, I'm going to binge. I'm going to eat all the food that I have to make up for lost time. My body, it's going to taste so good. I'm going to be able to taste every single spice, like I was just already planning.
Or you could go the opposite direction of like, my body's a temple. I don't want to put anything bad into it. I don't want to do anything. It's like, you really, I think that's very much a practice of how healed are you?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to know how healed you are, do an 11-day fast.
Yeah.
You'll figure it out pretty fucking quick.
By the end of it, were you still consumed by like, I'm skinny, like the aesthetic of it all?
No. But again, it's like this weird, and it's okay for you to experience multiple feelings about a single scenario.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that like situations are not usually mutually exclusive. You can experience a lot of feelings about one thing or a lot of growth and quote unquote regression at the same time. There is really no such thing as regression. You're always learning. You're always propelling yourself forward. It's non-linear growth. But the point is that I could still feel guilt and shame and that ego of I want to be skinny at the same time that I could feel I respect my body. I have awareness about how to eat. I have intentionality about how I'm going to do it in the future.
Yeah.
And so I had both. And by the end of the fast at like, day 6, 7, you are just chilling. I was like, I do not need a morsel of food. I could be fine for another 15 days.
Yeah.
I didn't emotionally crave it. I didn't mentally crave it. My body had accepted. I don't know at what point it gets dangerous. That's a whole different conversation.
Well, I think because you're doing the colonics too. I mean, people think that colonics are very detoxing, but they're also very hydrating.
Yeah.
People who do marathons get colonics like the day before because your organs just soak up that water.
Yeah.
So you were hydrated. Like
what a colonic is, too, just in case people don't know, is it literally you pump your large intestine full of water, and then as it comes out, it grabs all of the like solid waste and the kind of like calcified isn't the right word, but like
think about it like a pipe. And like your garbage disposal, it's a pipe, and things are going down your garbage disposal, but things are getting caught around the edges. Like there are things that are like slimy, gooey, like just on the edges that have been there for years. So it's almost kind of just like this deep cleaning of your bowels, essentially.
Yeah. And what you have to drink, one of the only things that I was drinking was, have you ever heard of psyllium husk?
Yeah. Oh my, and that, you were drinking that too?
That's all I was drinking, water and psyllium husk. And
because that clears you the fuck out too.
So bentonite clay and psyllium husk. Bentonite clay binds to toxins in your body. That's what we know about like clay and charcoal and things. Binds to toxins, pulls it out. Psyllium husk is an expander. So it like you drink it in a liquid, and then in your stomach, in your large intestine, it expands into what basically serves as a sponge. So it makes you feel full temporarily, unless you're doing colonics twice a day for 7 days. Doesn't really make you feel full. It doesn't stay in there, but it grabs all the things on the way out. Essentially, it's a sponge. Mm-hmm. I digress about the colonics, but just so everyone had an idea of like what was happening in my body. Long story fucking short, to get to the point. When I finished this, I had so much clarity. I had so much energy. I had so much, like, honestly, just clairvoyance of being this channel of, holy fuck, food has controlled me my whole life. I can be so intentional. I can be so intuitive about it. I can really look at my food and appreciate. I mean, I was raking my food every day. Like, I was so appreciative of where this food came from, how it got on my plate, how it got to me, that I was willing to look at it a completely different way. I was so intentional about the bites I took, the tastes, the smells, until I wasn't again. Mm-hmm. Until I wasn't. Mm-hmm. And the point that I really want to make about all of this is to be really gentle with yourself about your progress with your relationship to food, and to lead from a place of compassion versus control, to lead from a place of love and intentionality versus guilt and shame, and to know that like, that's just it. It will be a practice. It will be conscious, energetic effort and choice to do that. And I would love to hear about how you have implemented strategies to really be aware and conscious and gentle with yourself, with your eating. And maybe talking to people about what intuitive eating is.
So I want to start with, I have a vivid memory of me on a Thanksgiving. I was broken up with Lucas. I went back from college to Orlando, where I was raised, and I had Thanksgiving with my parents, my siblings, and my cousins and my aunt. And I was so emotional, not in a good place. So like, I just hated myself. I was heartbroken from the breakup. I was not in a good place. And I remember turning to the food. Didn't turn to my sister, didn't turn to my friends, didn't turn to my family. I turned to the fucking food. And I was so uncomfortable by like halfway through dinner that I had to literally leave the table and go lay on the couch. And I could not fucking enjoy myself at this Thanksgiving dinner, which was supposed to be a Thanksgiving where I hadn't seen my family in a bit because I was at college. It was a moment where I was like, I'm at fucking rock bottom. Like, this is not okay that I'm missing out on life because of my experience of being controlled by food. Truly one of the only things that got me out of it. I will say, and this is again kind of a slippery slope because it like has to do with intolerances, but I will say figuring out my intolerances really did help my relationship to food, because again, that shame cycle that you were talking about, I was feeling physically ill because of gluten and dairy, and that would make me feel bloated. Then that would trigger the thoughts of I'm disgusting, I'm fat, I'm all these things, and then trigger more of a binge. I do feel like intuitive eating is a process. It's not something that you're just going to wake up overnight and snap your fingers and have if you have been in a long cycle of disordered eating patterns. I remember somebody recently asking me, like, how did you get out of like your disordered eating? How did you get out of like a tough time? And I genuinely think, you're gonna fucking hate when I say this because it sounds so fucking easy, and it's not easy, but it truly is so simple. I found joy outside of fucking food. I don't want to say distraction, but like my food fucking consumed my life. Like it was the first thing I thought about when I woke up and the last thing I thought about when I went to bed. And I finally took my head out of the fucking plate and looked up and said, what are the things that I love in my life? What are the things that I value? There weren't a lot. I wasn't in a relationship with Lucas. I was in college, but like wasn't near like a lot of my best friends. I didn't love like the classes I was in. So I found like movement practices that I really fucking loved. I journaled more. I pursued a blog. I started hanging out with my friends who I actually did fucking like. And then I got back together with Lucas, and I felt like there was so much more joy and purpose in my life outside of food that it almost just healed on its own. And I think that I always thought it was going to be this thing that I forced. Like my healing was going to be this thing that I forced to happen, and I was going to wake up, snap my fingers overnight, and it was going to be fine. And it wasn't. It was such a process, and it happened very gradually.
The first thing that came to mind when you first started talking is finding places that bring you joy. I'd like to offer the other perspective as well of if so much of this restriction or binging or whatever it is that you struggle with comes from a place of emotion, identify places in your life that are causing that murky, yucky feeling of I need to turn to food because of this, and start setting boundaries in your life that aren't boundaries around restrictive dieting, that are more so boundaries around places that are causing like this disoriented, unsafe, uncomfortable feeling that is making you turn to the food in the first place. I mean, food can really be used as a tool for us to be able to evaluate places in our life, like we said in the very beginning of this episode, that are bringing you joy, that are feeding you, that are nourishing you, and also places that are not. So instead of using food to heal your relationship with food, use food as a tool to heal your relationship with other things in your life, with your relationships to humans, with your relationship to your career, with where you live in the city that you reside, in your environment around you, with yourself and your physical health and your body. Like, use it as a tool to improve other areas in your life, and therefore the outcome, the consequence of that is an improved relationship with food, which is exactly what you talked about with yours. And kind of how the quote unquote it healed itself is because instead of putting so much time and thought and effort and energy into healing, I need to heal my relationship to food. Yeah. It's like, no, I just need to heal in life. Yeah. I just need to evaluate and look at my life and see.
Yeah. And I think find your way of doing that, because there are so many different ways. And I think for me, and I'm curious what it might be for you, the most beneficial practice for self-healing has been through journaling, has been through asking my favorite question ever. Why?
Yeah.
Why? Over and over and over and over. And really getting to like the bottom of my belief systems that are in turn fueling my thoughts and then fueling my actions. So I think find that thing that feels like a good way to reflect on your behaviors and your patterns.
And to tie it into the holidays, like the holidays in general have this very paradoxical connotation of being loaded with joy and gratitude and connection and emotion and nostalgia, but also a lot of heaviness and overwhelm and toxicity. And, I think there's so many of us that have moved beyond especially as you age, that have moved beyond the ability to relate to ways that people in their family that they reconnect with live and think and feel. And that's okay. That when you go home, you feel like, what? Like, I just can't. I just can't. And maybe you're around in-laws that you don't understand, and maybe your dad got remarried, and maybe, you know, there's so many family dynamics that can cause a lot of stress and a lot of pressure that lead to that emotional eating or that restriction or that just like discomfort around how do I celebrate right now and where do I turn to because I'm just overwhelmed. But I urge you to, like, if that feels like it's your scenario where going home for the holidays or visiting with people for the holidays is stressful, to make it an individualized experience, to really treat this time in holiday season, through Thanksgiving, through Christmas, through Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate, however you celebrate, with whoever you celebrate with, to honor the fact that you are sharing space with whoever you're sharing space with, yes, but to really treat this as like, this is a time of year for me, for gratitude, for exploration, for curiosity, for growth. Like, if nothing else, let the day on the calendar be a marking of time for, this is a perfect time to just like choose a few intentions, choose a few things to work on. It has nothing to do with my family. It has nothing to do with the people I'm spending my time around. Or maybe it does, but
also I think, and this isn't even talking about food, but like I think going into those situations and not expecting something from these people is the only way that sometimes you can get through it. Is like, it's just gonna fucking be what it's gonna be.
Right.
Like, Uncle Bob is gonna be fucking weird. Grandma, whatever, is not gonna shut the fuck up. She might get too drunk. Like, whatever it is, you just gotta go into it with like
a sense of fucking humor. Let's start there.
A sense of humor, and almost kind of like, I am willingly subjecting myself to whatever the fuck happens here. And I know that I have gotten myself right. So I don't need to feel triggered when like we're talking about things that we disagree with or whatever. Like, I don't know. I feel like I used to get so angry about the fact that I have done all of this work, and I've, you know, even with food, like,
sure, you're jaded at other people not doing the work, and you are.
Totally.
And that makes you just as bad. And I struggle with this too. I struggle with this after, in a different context, after having traveled so much, coming back to America and looking at all the Americans and being like, you're all stuck on your hamster wheel. Fuck you. This place is shitty. You're all chaotic and weird. And I'm like, that makes me just as bad.
Yeah.
And so when you look at other people that you are judging, you are the one holding the hot coal.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard that saying? Like, when anger and resentment and judgment comes up, you're the one burning your own hand by holding the hot coal.
Yeah.
And if your situation around this holiday season is feeling like loaded, maybe take those pieces of advice, or take what you want and leave what you don't. If your situation is feeling like you're so excited to see your family and all your cousins and all your friends, and you're having a Friendsgiving and you're doing this, and overindulgence is a theme because you can get really carried away with how much joy and peace and beauty and love and connection there is. That's another, it's just another avenue to intuition in terms of like how to not overindulge.
Yeah.
Because everything in moderation, right? Everything is a balancing act. Everything is yin and yang. And so too much, too little, you need like Goldilocks porridge.
Well, and I think everything comes down to, I think true healing is a place of neutrality. Like coming to a place of neutrality about things. True healing around food is like not fucking hating yourself around food, not fucking loving yourself because you eat perfectly clean. It's like, no, coming to a place of neutrality and not giving anything a moral status.
The labels, again, we've talked about this so many times about like doing an episode on our labels limiting, but the identification of things as good and bad. So limiting. Have you ever, I'm going to tell one anecdotal story that I feel like maybe will relate somehow, but it's also just a fun thing to share. Have I told you the story about the guy with the horses?
No.
Okay. So this is really in line with maybe your family, maybe food, maybe friends, maybe things that you just kind of have to like stop attaching to outcomes, stop just releasing labels, releasing good, bad in order to heal, whatever, grow. A man lives in a village. He has one horse. He's a very poor man. He only has one horse. Everyone in the village has all these things. Da, da, da. His horse runs away. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, we're so sorry. Your horse ran away. That's so terrible. Are you okay? And he's like, maybe. They're like, okay. Next day, the horse comes back. It brings 3 horses with it. Everyone's like, oh, you have 3 horses now? This is so amazing. This is so great. Like, this is great. And he's like, maybe. The next day, his son gets on one of the horses. It bucks him off. His son breaks his leg. Everyone's like, this is so bad. You need to get rid of those horses. This is terrible. This is a terrible outcome. He's like, maybe. The next day, the army recruiter comes around, can't recruit the son to go to war because he has a broken leg. Everyone's like, this is so amazing. This is so great. And so all of that to be said, and the story could keep going, right? But the point is, you cannot inherently judge things as good or bad because you have no idea what that leads to.
Yeah. Like you can't identify with it.
You can't identify if something is good or bad. It's always just a maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. And if I stop labeling things as good or bad, if I stop labeling my eating habits as good or bad, my food as good or bad, my family as good or bad, my friends as good or bad. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's places where you need to set fucking boundaries and get rid of things that are not serving you. But the limiting labels around food, I think, are also a really massive part of just your relationship to it in general and your relationship to it specifically in the holidays. So like Amanda said, releasing and coming from a place of neutrality is the only way.
Mm-hmm. Have you ever read The Daily Stoic?
Maybe. Is it a podcast? Do they also have a podcast?
I think they do have a podcast, but it's like a page a day that you read.
I love Stoicism.
So the one today was November 15th, Everything Has Changed. It basically pulls a quote from meditations from like Marcus Aurelius and other philosophers. And the one that was today, it says, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but one says, it says, life is in a constant state of change, and so are we. To get upset by things is to wrongly assume that they will last. And that really stuck with me today because I'm like, there are so many moments where I identify with what is right now, especially when I was in the thick of my eating disorder, having that phone call with my friend where I was like, I am never going to get to a place where I can feel okay anymore. And guess what? If I continued to think that way, I wouldn't. And so if you are in the thick of it, if you are feeling any type of way, and it's really hard to do not identify and make your whole personality or your whole like existence about that thing, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. Like, please just like try to it's almost like disconnecting from the situation that you're in because you know that it's not you. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. It does make sense. Yeah, I think I said this in one of the first episodes, where your attention goes, your energy flows. And so when we are so fixated on solving a specific problem or dealing with a specific thing that we need to heal and want to be better at, we end up creating a lot of turmoil around it because we are so fixated on the outcome of fixing it, healing it, getting the answer, getting the solution. It's all full circle to where we started in allowance is key, non-attachment is key. Change, flexibility, fluidity is key, and gentleness and peace, approaching yourself with gentleness and peace and understanding that like you are always doing the best that you can with what you know and what you have. And we expand that capacity, right? We expand that bandwidth of what we know and what we have. That grows our whole life. But in this spectrum, you are doing the best that you can with what you know and what you have. So compassion, peace, gentleness are your mottos to move forward with whatever arises in this holiday season around food, around family, around friends, around career, around transition. And just know that in the beginning, when I said something along the lines of like, this is a constant practice for me, mm-hmm. I almost chose the word, this is a constant battle for me. Mm-hmm, and I changed battle to practice because when you label things, again, back to labeling and limiting,
it becomes that.
It becomes that. And so it is.
Yep.
And so it is.
Yep.
It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So again, when you're talking about these things, just like a general statement of like things that you are working on. It's just a project. It's just a practice. It's not a fight. It's not a battle.
It's an observation.
It's an unbiased observation. And
it even goes back to one thing that we mentioned, I think on the very first episode, was the emotional frequency chart.
Yeah.
If you are in this spiral of guilt and shame, you can't get to joy, enlightenment, love without getting to acceptance first. You have to get to acceptance to be able to get there. And so if anything, just accept where you are. And I know that sounds so like counterproductive, but I'm telling you, it is such a big step towards progress.
I think we also really need to look at, maybe this is not related, but it's just coming up for me. So I'm speaking from the heart.
The fuck?
I'm speaking from the fuck. The first law of physics is that everything is energy, right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. If everything is energy, everything has a frequency, everything has a vibration. We can all agree on that. We know that scientifically proven frequencies like to match pitch. Vibrations like to match one another. And so that works both ways. It's cyclical. It's what's within you surrounds you, working both ways. And so when you decide to vibrate at a specific frequency of peace, love, joy, kindness, intuitive alignment, you attract that. When you allow other people to define your frequency for you and define your vibration for you, that's when you stoop to the lower levels of the heart. That's when you stoop to lower vibrations of your being that put you in guilt and shame cycles, that put you in resentment, holding the hot coal, that put you in places of like, the world is against me, I'm a victim, I'm in this battle, everything is hard. So I really encourage you to define your own frequency, to define your own vibration, working from like places of neutrality, but also just like places of love, I keep coming back to this word gentleness, of true gentleness with others and with yourself. And that's the ripple effect, right? That is how we make change in the world, is when you change your vibration, your frequency, your literal energetic bubble. That's how you make change in the world. And that's how you make change with your family. And that's how you make progress. And that's how you, I don't know. I could get on my soapbox for days, but.
Well, to wrap this up, I posted on my Instagram last night asking people to send in like conscious confessions.
Did we get it?
We got a few.
What?
Yeah. So I wanted to read some of them. And one speaks exactly to what we're talking about. Is someone says, I'm learning to be more aware of nutritional intake rather than labeling foods good or bad.
Love.
Yeah.
Smooches, great work.
Yep. The other one is, I exaggerate a relaxed relationship with food around my mom so she will eat at holidays.
How selfless.
Yeah.
I also, oh gosh, this is such a wormhole. This is such a
that one was
hole.
loaded.
That was loaded. And I want to say so many things about it. I really honor that person for having such compassion and such empathy, for exaggerating her relaxed relationship to food to in turn help her mom heal her relationship to food. I also want to let you know that you don't have to compromise your own practices and your own comfort to heal other people, to fix other people, to help other people. You don't, maybe this is a hot topic because she's your mom and I don't know your relationship to her and I don't know what that looks like. And good for you for doing the Lord's work and being a light worker and being a healer, but like, you don't owe anyone anything. And if that is simultaneously healing to you to heal her, yay. But do not put yourself in a box to heal other people. So find, again, neutrality, balance, harmoniousness. Like,
also, that's a lot. I feel like that's just a lot. So I'm sending you love and compassion, like to be cognizant of that instead of just existing in like your own experience and just like not having to think about, like, being cognizant about something kind of takes you out of the present moment. So like just sending you a lot of love.
Yeah, we see you, we honor you. And it's a heavy load to be someone who is really empathic.
Yeah.
So we see that.
And then the last one is a confession. I have not stepped on a scale for 4 years. Best thing ever.
Yes.
Yeah.
Snaps.
Yeah.
Because numbers are so not telling of its actual
It's the opposite of intuition.
Yeah.
It's the opposite of
just like
intuition.
calorie counting, just like
yeah,
stepping on a scale. I mean, that's a whole nother, there's a whole reservoir of information that could be tapped into about physical body image. And so maybe we'll revisit that when we have more time to go into this worldly, sensual Taurus experience. But for now, I hope that you're seeing, as you toggle between episodes, how we can switch from shooting the shit, my favorite saying, shooting the shit, laughing, being ridiculous,
being
talking
silly.
talking about things that really are just like so
not
serious, but also holding space for really important conversations, sharing our experiences in hopes that it will inspire you to share yours. Because the thing that I will leave you with on my microphone is that vulnerability breeds vulnerability. Do with you will with that. You have a voice, you have an experience. You are seen, you are heard. Talk about it. Find someone to confide in. Find places that make you feel safe and accepted and comfortable. And we hope that this podcast is one of them.
Yeah, if you don't, we're that for you, for sure.
We love you.
Love you.
Keep us posted about how your holidays
are going.
Go.
Sending you love.
Sending you love. You can find us on Instagram, TikTok. Leave us a review.
Please.
Please. I at this point... It's embarrassing.
Love you. Bye.
Love you. Bye.